Dude. So Mark, I've known you since like 2008 in the old Apex alarm days. No, APX at the time, right?
That's right.
So that's been a long time, been a long, long time. Dude, when you go back to the old alarm days, like what do you look at? Like, what do you look at fondest of those old alarm days?
Dude, I loved the pioneering that happened. There was so many great leaders created out of all the programs that were running. Um, the camaraderie, the competition, the possibility that people like looked forward to, and the simplicity. When we knocked doors, it was with pen and paper,
Yeah.
and we were
Yeah.
hand signing contracts, right? The draft, we'd always draft our area. People got pretty anxious about that. All the research that was done. Yeah, my fondest memories were really the relationships that I built. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys that we worked with.
Does it feel like a long time ago to you, or does it still seem fresh?
Yeah, it in a lot of ways it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Just because of how much you grind with people, and it kind of gets embedded into your soul. So yeah, I remember it like yesterday when I was rolling out to Hood in my very first area in Detroit, Michigan, with Courtney Jones and Kate Smith, and we're listening to Eminem, and we're about to go sell some ADT alarm systems for Alliance.
Like, yeah.
So yeah, and then I went on my mission for 2 years, took a 2-year break, and when I got back, holy cow, the industry had, it was completely transformed. Everyone that was over at Apex or Pinnacle or wherever they were, and
Yeah.
Yeah, those were fun times, man.
Do you feel like you said you're still in contact with a lot of those guys? I know like we still have a group text with my teams from all the way back from like 2012, 2011. It's like we've stayed friends. It's like this. It's like it's the same thing as on your mission, right? You work hard with a group of dudes, and somehow you just forge these kind of lifelong relationships where you just kind of like can look at each other and know what the other person's going through, and it just builds a connection that really lasts a long time. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we still have a group text with all the sales managers of Lane Thompson's region from 2025 or 2005.
Yeah, that's
so 20
wild.
years running. Yeah, we got Cy Tidwell, Courtney Jones, Rick Bassett, Michael Romney. So we all have this thread, and we're talking about going on like a reunion cruise. We kind of keep in touch there.
You should do it. That'd be super cool. But yeah, it's fun because it was like every year was like this new adventure, new records to be set. It was like ultra competitive.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this kind of new discovery. Plus, for a lot of people, it's like going to these different parts of the country and discovering the different cultures outside of whatever bubble you grew up in. It was cool to see the different walks of life that people had. I love the adventure of the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
So would you mentioned like all the leadership that came out of it. And I go back to Vivint. That was my background. I know you were there for a long time. Like Todd was able to spawn like thousands and thousands of business owners that have gone through his program. What would you say, like, how did door-to-door affect your career path? Like what opportunities do you feel like opened up to you because you knocked doors as a 20-year-old kid?
Yeah. So true. It is incredible to see what Todd, Keith, Sean, and all the early leaders produced for the industry at large, the home services industry, right? It started with alarms, actually started with pest control or whatever he got involved in. You and I joined the alarm era. And to see the amazing amount of leaders that have come and started businesses and built massive contributing businesses to like the communities that they serve is really cool. So for me, yeah, the door-to-door realm opened up what I call possibility. Like all things became possible when you learned how to communicate with people and believe in yourself and work through opposition. It was hard. It still is hard, but it creates like a resilience, a mindset that allows people to work through anything related to like business or anything that's challenging, and how to build a system and a process. And so, yeah, I think that it's like embedded in me now. Like it's all about tracking your metrics and moving forward and making adjustments, and then collaborating with a team, reporting out on your metrics, being accountable. And those are all common denominators for running a successful business.
And isn't that so cool though? It's like, I go back and I look at that. I'm like, dude, if I never did summer sales, would I have learned the same kind of lessons? Like, would I have been able to go down the same career path having not learned some of that stuff?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm right there with you. There's so many things you learn about yourself, about business, about what's required to go do things. Right. So yeah, my entire, I mean, I met my wife out in my first summer program with Apex in Denver, Colorado. So yeah,
Nice.
the whole trajectory of my life would be completely different had I not, taken that leap.
Of all the people that you got to work with over those years, do you have any like major standouts of people that you just really, really look up to as a leader or as a person?
And that's tough because there's so
Because
many.
there's a lot. No, I know.
So many. Yeah, I always look to Lane Thompson as my first mentor. He's the one that kind of took me under his wing. So big kudos and shout out to him. We actually sold Dish Network together in Provo, Utah, and then he recruited me to go sell with Alliance, Jake Taylor, Matt Sturzer, who became Icon, and then I went on my mission, and he was right there ready for me to, you know, get embedded in the Apex realm. And then I worked with Cy Tidwell, loved working with him. Michael Romney was a buddy of mine that I recruited. He and I served together in our mission. So
Great guy.
he's such a stud. Like I look up to him so much, even though I brought him in and recruited him and did a little bit of training. He ended up training a lot of people and me too. So, and yeah, my first summer program, Courtney Jones, Cade Smith, those guys made it um, much more enjoyable. They were a lot of fun to work with. Yeah, I always looked up to all the regionals. They were on a pedestal, and everyone kind of looked at them as that's how to go.
Yeah.
So in the early years, it was Jeremy Pixton was always the guy that was setting records, and we had to chase him. And then you had Chance and Jared Hallows, and all the early guys. Jared Young did a great job. And then while we're all hanging out, insert this guy named Casey Baugh. He comes from some other company. We're like, who's this guy? What's he doing? Why is Todd giving him some attention? And all of a sudden he just blows up, and in comes, Mendez and all the guys that came with it. It was really cool to see those guys just adopt the modality and get cranking. So,
And you look where all of those guys have continued in their careers because of it all as well. It's pretty incredible. And I mean, Mark, you've worked with hundreds and probably thousands of reps on your teams and in your company over the years. As you look at kind of like the lessons you learned and the things that you admire in some of these leaders and your coworkers, what do you hope that people look for or that they're able to gain from working with Mark Bench in any capacity? What is it that you hope, like what kind of impact do you hope to leave with the people that you work with?
that's a great question. Yeah, look, my approach is always I'm more of like what can I do to create possibility for you? I like to put puzzle pieces together. What is it that's important to you, and how can we make that happen? So I'm a collaborator by nature. I'm an open book. I'm pretty transparent. So I like to share, and in the sharing, whatever I can do to contribute to someone else is what's important to me. And then I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, both in investing or business. And the one thing that's probably the most important to me is that I do whatever I can to bring integrity or honor to my word and my reputation. And, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do everything I can to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm going to clean it up and do whatever I can to make it right. And that's the kind of leaders that I want to continue to show up in our industry. People who do what they say they're going to do, and they do it with kindness and respect. And we do whatever we can to contribute. Coming from an abundance mindset is really challenging for a lot of people, especially when they're struggling. In the solar industry, there's a lot of people struggling. And when people struggle, it's really difficult to operate from abundance. But what we've seen, and all the leaders that have gone before us that have done well, is they come from abundance no matter what. And they're always looking at how they can give back and serve and 10x what they're putting in versus what they're taking. So yeah, when people think about working with me, that those are probably some of the most important attributes that I want to show up when they think about who I am and what I stand for. Yeah, I do want to be the best at what I do. I want to be number one at something, just like many other business leaders. Like, well, where can I win? I'm a competitive person, but I want to do it with class,
For sure. No, and I love that. And I think, that idea of transparency and honesty is, it's such a refreshing thing in the world, right? And especially in the industry that we're in, I think people look to that kind of leadership in solar, where there's, we've got a black eye. There's a lot of people, unfortunately, that have put money over integrity, money over morals, and it's really hurt our industry. And so I think from a leadership standpoint, and you've done such a great job as an owner of TriSmart, and I think it shows, right? You guys have been able to grow. You guys have a good reputation. I'm sure that a lot of it comes because of the way that you conduct yourself. And moving into this new year, right? You're an owner of TriSmart. You guys have had an awesome run so far. You're dominating the state of Texas. You guys are all over the place. 2024 year was a brutal year, but you guys got through it and did really, really well. Tell me about how 2025 is looking for you so far. How was January?
Yeah, great question. I love that. And I will always iterate to people, you only see the tip of the iceberg. I know you know that. We certainly know that. 2024 was actually a really challenging year. We were flat on our top line revenue. EBITDA, took a big hit. We finished the year at like 2%, right? And that's not good. We want to be up over that 10% range. So sales were up though. We had a record breaking year on sales, but cancellations came with it. So net installs, we dropped a little bit. We went from like 3,223 to 2,800 installs in 24. So what does that mean for 25? Well, right now we are fighting, biting, and scratching for margin. We've got to increase profitability so that we can strengthen cash flow. Cash flow is a nightmare for most installers right now. It is stressful. Yep. Many business owners are up all night thinking like, how am I going to do this? At least I would assume that's the case, because I know we run a good business and we track.
If they're not, then they're out of business.
If they're not, then they're like, yeah. So we're not any different. TriSmart, at surface level, people think, oh, you're dominating, you're doing so well. But behind the scenes, we're like, no, man, we're like, one of my directors put it this way: we're like a duck on the water, but underneath our legs are just, yeah, exactly. That's how it is for most people. So, what you see isn't always what's actually happening. So yeah, for 2025, what are we focused on? We're focusing on diversifying our sales channels. The dealer model has its pros and cons. So, we love our dealers, but also they're susceptible to, the market conditions as well, where there's constantly recruiting and undercutting and people are still chasing the highest commission. And we don't fault people for that. People have to do what's best for them. At the same time, though, I don't think a lot of these sales channels realize that a big shift in volume can literally bankrupt companies overnight. Good companies that know what they're doing and deliver a good service and product and do it at a pretty fair price. So we're diversifying sales channels. We relaunched our direct program. So that's really taken off. We've got some really solid sales leadership coming on board right now. We increased our battery attachment from 5% to 80%. From Q3 to Q4, so year to date last year, the first 3 quarters, it was really low. And then all of a sudden we turn on our VPA program and, batteries are flying off the shelf. So we've got to really strengthen the infrastructure for our electrical knowledge so that we can install more batteries at a quicker pace. We're looking at how do we partner with financial institutions that are aligned with our interests, including, having more control over the underwriting process and, partnering up in a deeper way on the long-term asset class that we're putting on. We're going to continue to drive discipline. If things aren't making, profit and we can't do it at a profitable way, then we're going to say no to it. We've got to start tracking even more meticulously the cost of acquisition on our labor costs, because it is death by 1,000 cuts. When a lot of people actually saved money on inventory materials last year. We were all getting excited because
we thought it was going to be the ripper year, right?
Yeah, it was like, I think a lot of installers thought, hey, we're going to get discounts on pricing. Look at these modules; they came down. Inverter costs kind of stayed the same, maybe even they dropped. And so in your back of the envelope math, like, oh, cool, yeah, we're going to save this much money, so we can kind of use that to go recruit more people or drive more sales product. But what you weren't paying attention to was the cost of labor, the cost of insurance, the vehicle fleets that you had that are starting to deplete and you have to reinvest in those, and the cost of renting your warehouses or whatever it is. All these other ancillary costs shot through the roof for us.
Well, and then you talked about cash flow. It's also the cost of slow cash flow because of inventory shortages with batteries, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And then on the back end, if you're doing a lot of TPO products, the funding slowed way down. So now any profits that you had just got ground up and eaten to keep operations going while you're waiting to get paid by the bank. So yeah, brutal.
It all gets gobbled up somewhere. So yeah. Just again, retracking everything, looking at the things that matter most. So
okay, so let me ask you this then. If we're going to do a SWOT analysis for this year, we'll do a quick basic one, right? Mm-hmm. What are, for 2025, what do you see as the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that, whether you're an installer or a sales rep, what are some of the main things that you guys have kind of looked at that people ought to be aware of?
Yeah, at least, I mean, we do this for TriSmart almost on a quarterly basis. So our strengths, of course, are, industry reputation, brand, footprint, optionality. We have a lot of financing options. For the industry at large, I think the strength for the industry is utility rates are rising still. Utility grids are becoming more and more unstable. There's a high demand for electrification in our country that we don't have immediate solutions for. And people want to own their power, right? Or they at least want to control it in some sense. So I think that's a strength. And then also just people are becoming more aware. There are a lot more happier customers than there are sad ones, but the news wants to focus on the 1% that's bad. I think a strength is that there is a lot of consumers out there that are willing to give good feedback if we can go solicit them for it, right? Another strength of TriSmart is that we have strong financial acumen. So, we have 3 years of audited financials, which is very helpful. That's very rare in our industry to go get that done. It took us 2.5 years to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're an installer, I recommend you do whatever it takes to get your financials audited, because it does unlock a whole just level of tracking and, decision making. The weaknesses of the industry are that there's a lot of focus on the bad, like consumer protection is an issue. The other weaknesses is there's very little loyalty in our industry for, sales to install to financing relationships. Sales teams aren't always loyal to installers. They're loyal to commissions, which I understand, right? And the ones that are, sometimes they get burnt too because the installer isn't running a good operation. So then they feel like, well, I can't be loyal to one because if I make my bet at this one and they can't pay me, then I'm host. So it's a conundrum. The same thing where installers aren't loyal to financiers. It used to be like we would try and structure one financing platform because it was easier to manage. Now all of us have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different options. And so there's not a whole lot of loyalty because we don't necessarily trust that we're going to get paid when we need to get paid, or they're going to change something on us that dramatically changes our business. They might change an interest rate or a dealer fee or a program that they have. So loyalty is a weakness of our industry for sure. And then of course the policy and regulations that are coming, there's a strong need to, get familiar with those things so that we can meet it where it is and like embrace it and help actually shift and shape it. Right. So you got strengths, you got weaknesses, you got the opportunities in the industry are, look, we got to continue to focus on the new products of battery technology, storage, virtual power plants, new type of financing structures that actually work for everyone. We have an opportunity to really reset the way in which the economics work so that the money's distributed in a way that creates sustainability. What I mean is installers have got to make more money.
Yep.
And save that money and allocate that money, right? Just got off a call about warranty reserve. We got to figure out how to make sure that we're allocating the right amount of money in each of the buckets to ensure that the customers are protected, sales teams are getting paid, and most importantly, the installers have enough money to continue to service these contracts for 25, 30 years or forever. Another opportunity is to continue to strengthen the collaborative efforts that are happening in the industry rather than tearing each other down, because there's a lot of undercutting happening, a lot of recruiting each other's teams. An opportunity we have is let's go pull people into the industry from outside the industry. Let's go grow it that way instead of tearing each other down.
Like you said, the abundance mentality.
Exactly. And the threats, there's quite a few. for an installer, weather, traumatic events that are uncontrollable, earthquakes, fires, like there's all those things. Then there's also the new administration that has come in. The threat could be that they take away some of the subsidies that have been running our entire infrastructure for profitability and economics. So we do have that threat. I don't anticipate that it will go away. At least my personal opinion is the tax credits will be here. However, it is always an ongoing threat. And then, of course, the policy and regulations, I don't see them as a threat per se. They're actually an opportunity, but they're a threat for companies that aren't willing to collaborate and actually unify our efforts to level up the industry. It's only going to be a threat if you're unwilling to adopt and embrace. Background checks for sales teams and installers are important. If you're not doing them, you got to do them. If not, then that becomes a threat to you. Sales certifications, that's another one. We've got to get some sort of industry certification at the utility level. There's a lot of certification like, hey, generally speaking, solar 101, yeah, cool, that's awesome. But solar is sold at the utility level. So therefore, certifications really need to be made at that level, because the way it interacts with that utility is the most critical function of if it's going to save them money or not, what's going to happen when the grid goes down, what are the new bills going to look like, all of that, right?
And it's so hard for a rep to keep track of all that, especially in a state like Texas, where you've got so many different retailers with all different buyback programs. And so whether they're uneducated or whether they're just regurgitating what they heard the last guy say, it's easy to make a mistake and make a promise that unfortunately isn't true, and that ends up hurting the customer because they end up buying something that that doesn't meet their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with customers every single week saying, "Hey, I was promised this." And it's like, I'm so sorry that was promised to you, because that's just simply not possible with the way that the rate plans work in this state.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. I think that there needs to be certainly more education for reps to be able to sell in a specific utility and make sure that they understand how it works, how it can benefit the customer, and then how it could actually hurt the customer if it's not done right.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I'd say one of the other major threats is more installation companies and financing companies going out of business because they're either undercapitalized, they're not managing resources appropriately, or just the industry is just beating them up so bad they can't go anymore. So that is a threat. It makes it more difficult. Some of our larger companies that have kind of led the way, if they continue to struggle and don't make it, it doesn't go well for any of us. It's just one more conversation to manage with customers and sales teams and whatnot. So, and then the capital investments that are being made in the industry also could slow down with more and more people going out of business. So we got to have kind of a resurgence of positive vibes, and people just need to kind of come together and say, how do we solve this problem? And it starts with collaboration and patience and everyone coming together and understanding one another. So
heck yeah. Well, good summary of what we're looking at for 2025. You mentioned one of your initiatives is you guys are bringing an inside team back in. You as a sales rep were always a top performer. I mean, you absolutely killed it on the doors. What are the top 3 qualities that you look for in a successful sales rep?
Oh, I love that question. I mean, first thing and foremost is they got to show up. What I mean by showing up is teaching someone to be driven is really difficult. They either have it or they don't. Now, often when they get a taste of some level of success, it will influence the drive that they have. But you know who you are. You have like whoever they are out there they have like this innate desire or drive to go and get it, whatever it is. So you got to look for the drive, right? The second thing that I like to look for is a humble willingness to be coachable. Like they're ongoingly sponging up information. I would consider myself as a highly competent sales leader, and I'm always willing to learn more. Like I always want to know, how did you do that? What are you doing differently? Because the moment you say, I know, you put a cap on learning. Like you just completely discarded any possibility for learning more, in my opinion. So being in the inquiry of what is possible. So being driven, being humble, and then also having integrity. Like they do what they say they're going to do. And if they don't, they know that they're not, and they're willing to step up and honor that, bring workability and like restore what's missing, right? So I'd say those are the three things, right? Being driven, being coachable, and being like integrous, doing what they say they're going to do on time, the way that it's meant to be done, or they're at least like in communication about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. A rep who has that natural drive, it's something that kind of comes innate. You can't coach that drive. And those are the guys that are going to have the natural competitive nature. Those are the guys that are going to probably have the natural work ethic just because they want what they want whatever it is that they're after. So I love those. Let me ask you this, you've been through the ups and downs of business cycles and of this industry, as we were just kind of discussing. If you could go back and talk to 23-year-old Mark, what advice would you give yourself at that young age? What would you want him to know moving forward?
Oh man, I love that question. You know, I think when I listen to Jeff Mendez, Casey Baugh, Dave Allred, and a lot of these guys that have really become successful in their I'll call it their alternate careers to door to door, right? They went and took what they learned in door to door and went and did something really cool with it. The younger generations, myself included, want what they want. They want it now. So if I could go back in time, one, I would take full control of my financial future. I wouldn't give my money to anyone. As you know, and you participate in this with me, I made a lot of investments that went bad with a bunch of different people. I put a lot of trust in other people with my hard-earned money and hoped that and I did the work. Like I looked into it. I had an attorney review it, but at the end of the day, it didn't work out. Right. And it really set me back by about 10 years, right? Like when you lose that much money at that young of age, you think you're invincible. You think that, oh, I can recover from this. I went and made so much money, no big deal. That's not the case. When you get knocked off that horse, it's not always that easy to get back up. So I would say financial acumen, learn where to put your money where you have control. So if I were to do it all over again, I would take 50% of my earnings and I'd invest it into assets that I can control.
Yeah.
Make yourself investment poor. Keep yourself hungry. Forget about the nice car, the nice house. Take all that money, invest it into real estate or stocks or some sort of secure investment that you can control and watch grow, and learn how it works. Don't just fully trust people to handle it for you. At least learn how to make it work. And then the second thing is I would really focus on how to build, manage, and empower teams. It's one thing because many people relate to me as like one of those top 1% performers, right? I was really good as an individual. I really struggled early on in my career to duplicate myself and to train what I knew. My brain just functioned differently. And I got impatient with it where I'd say, hey, you guys figure it out. I'm going to go sell, So learn for yourself how to empower others and duplicate and create teams and teamwork. Because if you want to go far, go as a team, right? You want to go alone, go as an individual. So you want to go short and fast. That's the other way. So I wish I had learned earlier on how important it was to get a team, to work together and actually everyone perform and be really interested in the performance of others, even more so than your own.
I love that. I love that. I actually had the same answer for myself is like, you work so hard and you gain so much, you're putting yourself in such a unique opportunity to set yourself up for life. And when you're young and inexperienced, it's really easy to kind of be willing to gamble that because cool, 4 months of hard work got me this. It's not that big of a deal, but it's like, how much further could you be if you didn't throw it all, down the toilet? So
right.
yeah, I love that advice. So here's one on the other side then. This is an interesting one. If 23-year-old version of Mark could come talk to, how are you 40 yet? How old are you?
I'll be 41 this year.
Okay. So if 23-year-old version of Mark could come back and talk to you today, do you think that he would have anything that he would criticize you about or look at you now and say, what do you think he would say? I guess is my general question. Interesting question.
23-year-old Mark was much more arrogant, cocky, and really had like this unmessable with mindset. Like I could do anything and nothing will stop me kind of mentality. But after almost 20 years of living life, it'll beat you up. It'll tear you down. it'll give you all the reasons why you can't or why you shouldn't. And, the natural way of living becomes more risk adverse. You play it safe because you've taken some risks and they didn't work out. So I think my younger self would remind me, like, look, life is life. Go live life. Stop waiting. Stop, go live like all things are possible, and then go do it. You can do it. You are enough. Because when I was 23, I was like, I am enough. I'm awesome. Like, no one can say otherwise. But now as a 41-year-old, like, I'm not enough. Like, you become almost insecure as you live life longer, right?
Yeah.
Because you're constantly looking around. So the comparative, I call it the comparadigm. The comparative view of others is usually a diminishing thing, not an empowering thing, the older you get. The younger you are, it's like, yeah, that's awesome. I want to be like that. You have something to look forward to. But if you notice now, the older you've gotten, the more you look around on social media and other people and you start comparing yourself, you kind of feel sick. Like, oh, I'm not enough, right? So I think my younger self would say, hey, focus on you. You're doing great. You are enough. You have what it takes. Go get it.
Yeah.
That's what I'd probably say. And that's a great question. I've never thought of that before.
So some of that young optimism that again, you kind of lose a little bit just because you get beat up over the years. So it's
Right.
kind of fun to look back at those happy-go-lucky door knocking alarm boys that could go conquer the world, didn't have any fear of knocking in a super dangerous neighborhood in Detroit, Michigan,
Right.
and just went out there and made it happen. But it's that kind of optimism that I think would be awesome if I could just like inject that back in myself. I think that would be a pretty cool thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Let me ask you this. What are you working on outside of work right now? Obviously the business takes up an extraordinary amount of time and thought energy. What are you doing for yourself? Any grit exercises or any fitness challenges that you're working on right now?
Great. Last year I was much more focused on that. So far this year, I don't think I've worked out. I've gone on maybe 1 or 2 walks. I'd like to get back to that. But no, to answer your question, I'm actually, when I have the time, we just got a new dog. So he's cute. His name's Hudson. I just posted about him on Facebook. I did not want a dog, but we got one. So I love hanging out with my dog. I like hanging out with my kids when I can and, getting to know them better. I have a somatic energy coach that I meet with once or twice a week. And so I'd say a lot of my time is spent healing past trauma, like, really getting clear on who I am for myself. So I've been doing a lot of that work. And then, and that also is helping with the marriage, right? When you're running a business.
Tell me that word again. What did you say? Somatic?
Somatic energy. So, her name's Belinda Phillips. She's awesome. You can look her up online if you're interested. I've loved using her. So she'll have me find safety in my body. Like literally, close your eyes. It's a lot of where do you feel this? Where do you feel that? Do you have a memory here? Do you have a memory there? And we together go where that's being stored in my body.
Yeah.
And we talk through it. And I bring safety into my body to let it kind of do its thing because the body will process and heal itself from trauma. It's a miracle. It's a gift that the body can do. That a lot of people we try and think our way through things, but our body will process things too, without us doing anything. We just got to bring attention to it. So I've been doing a lot of that lately, and that's been helping me also in my marriage because, when you're a high performer and constantly focused on business growth, all of the things, and you're being responsible for all that, a lot of your relationships can be, really confronted. So Jody and I both have been working on some of that stuff together, right? And we get vulnerable. We, work through like the past trauma even that we've created for ourselves in our marriage. We're coming up on 20 years of marriage this year, which is incredible. And we're really
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. And as you know, marriage isn't easy, man. You go through times, you go through seasons. And again, all we see is the tip of the iceberg, right? So it's been good to meet with her together and separate. I also like to travel when I can. So, we'll pick up and go, try a new city or whatever. But yeah, last year I was really focused on health. I did a weight loss challenge and lost, like 20 pounds. And I've been able to maintain that for the most part. I have a tonal at my house. So when I do work out, I like working on that tonal. That thing's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was doing the ice. I have an ice plunge or a cold plunge at my house.
That's big. Yeah.
Last year. That's pretty trendy right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are the thing you do, but it's rewarding every time, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Let me ask you this. If you retired today and money was no longer an issue, what would be a purpose-driven venture that you would want to pursue?
Oh, I'd love to get in the world of what other people are dealing with and help them solve their problems or get out of their own way. Like I'd love to just go sit down with the business owner and say, what's hurting right now? Where can I help?
Yeah,
And help them see themselves bigger, and create a vision and help them establish systems, processes within their business to help them. So I'd love to be a coach or a mentor of some sort and help bring people together. I like getting people to kind of align on one vision that really is bigger than what one person can see, which is why I have liked working, with the RSA and SIA, and a lot of these other groups, is because it's an opportunity to put off like the competitive hat and come together and unify efforts to, one mind, one vision for something bigger than we can see right now. And I'd love to spend more time with my kids too. Like they have passion, they're driven, they want to do stuff. So I'd like to help be like a better mentor to them, and kind of coach them and guide them through the challenges that are coming their way.
I love that. I love that. Okay, two more quick ones for you. So we had the terrible fires in California, right?
Mhm.
We hear these stories of these poor folks that had 45-minute warning to get out of their house before it was completely engulfed. If there was this big fire in Texas and you guys knew that you had a minimal time to get out of the house, what would be 2 to 3 items, not including your family, of course, but what would be 2 to 3 items that you would want to bring with you?
Um, I have a family picture that I love that I'd bring. Um, a lot of our photos and stuff are in the cloud, so that's helpful. But I'd probably grab as many pictures as I could because I love pictures. I have. Let me see, what else do I have? I probably wouldn't have enough room, but we have a guitar that my daughter and I would like to play. I'm not that great at it, but it's fun to hear her play,
Yeah.
and I'll play from time to time. Um, and I guess aside from the clothes on my back, I'd probably make sure I have a change of clothes,
There
right?
you go.
Um, yeah, we don't have. I'm just trying to think. I mean, yeah, you got like computers and laptops and stuff like that. I probably would grab a laptop, in case I had photos on my hard drive that didn't get saved. But yeah, those are the first things come to mind: pictures, a guitar, and maybe a laptop.
Awesome.
Um,
So you're basically saying you can pretty much live and rebuild without any of that other stuff, right? Which is the reason I asked the question is, in a sales-based career, we're all seeking as much money and income and wealth as we possibly can. But when it comes down to it, it's like, but what for? If I had to leave it all behind, honestly, I really don't care about any of it except for the things that mean something where I was connected to another person. Your pictures and your guitar are that's what it all comes down to. And
yeah,
so I guess the message behind that kind of a question is like, guys that are selling and you're making all this money, like, yeah, be ambitious and set yourself up for retirement and invest and do all that kind of stuff, but just be purpose driven, develop yourself as a person, because the stuff that you buy, as much as you think it's awesome and you care about it, you really don't.
yeah. I love that question. Thanks for getting me present to that.
Okay, last question for you. What single core value in your life drives you the most in the decisions that you make?
I'd say being connected. So, and it is one of our core values here. I've found that when I'm more committed to being connected to people than being right about something, things seem to work. So it's just really getting in the world of someone else. Like, what's going on over there for you? How do you see it? What do you see? How, what would you do if it were you? Um, and what hurts over there for you? What's the pain point? And also what gets you going? Like what excites you? What do you want to create? So when I focus on that kind of connection with people and what they want, then wherever we're going, I'm more committed to the connection than being right, or even sometimes where we're going. Like, as long as we're going in a direction that we're both aligned in and we're having communication. So being connected and in communication, or because when you're in, you can create anything and all things become possible when you're connected and in communication. Like, you can create anything. in a conversation.
That's fantastic. I
So
and I think that's one of the
great.
hardest things for anybody to develop, right? That's a value I think that everybody would love to attain, but it requires vulnerability, it requires empathy, it requires humility to be able to listen and get with that other person where they're coming from. It's a very mature quality. It's a very mature value that I think takes a lot of time and practice to be able to get to. And clearly it's something that you've been working a lot on, which is awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast today, Mark. Your insights are awesome. I've always looked up to you and respected you from that, super high energy, confident 23-year-old to now the 42-year-old or 40-year-old version of yourself. I congratulate you on all the success that you have and that you're going to continue to have. I congratulate you on your hard work, your integrity, and the things that you're trying to do. But I certainly appreciate you taking the time with me today, and I hope that everybody that's been able to listen has been able to take some nuggets that they can apply in their lives, and hopefully maybe just kind of ask themselves certain questions that will be able to help you to make those little small changes that we each make every day to become the better versions of ourselves. So appreciate everybody being on the show today. Mark, thanks again, and we will see you guys next time on the Fusion Power Podcast.
Thanks, Jared. Appreciate it.